All right. So here's my thing is this. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that this is what goes on. We're calling it code switching, but um, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of, and it's our fault sometimes as a Black culture. And hear me out on this. I feel like even when we say certain things, we say that a person acting a certain way, that's Black or that's for the culture. And here's the thing, yeah, parts of it is, but the language that Bart is talking about is about being professional and being and having class. And unfortunately, we've even done a disservice as a Black culture, oftentimes saying that that is acting white. That's not acting white. That's acting professional, or that's acting with class. And so, as a people of color, what we have to understand, it's not switching from being Black to white. No, it's switching from being just being joking around to now being serious, because now we're in a situation that language has to change. We're now in a place where we have to be professional. We got to act a certain way. So even as a culture, we need to start doing things to change that narrative. Yes, that part that you're talking about, that's being portrayed on television as us being a certain way. We need to change it so that the language is that it's not switching from Black to white. It's just us switching from being just joking around to think. Because here's the thing, white people do the same thing too.
Very
white
true.
people, they'll be joking around with their friends and acting a fool with their friends, but then they get in a certain circle and they understand now they gotta
the only difference, and then I'll pass it over to Calvin. The only difference between a white person doing it and a Black person doing it is the repercussions.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's the only difference. A white person, like my East Indian friends do it, like my Asian friends do it. Like they have moments with their own culture, and then when they're in a professional setting, the only difference is the repercussions and the assumption on the other side of the table.
100%.
Right.
You're right.
Like that's the only real difference. It's like, so we like friends. If you're watching this, if you can see our chat, it's hilarious. And then I've seen all of us in ministry moments where like, it's not time to be grown up. It's just time to do the job properly. Yeah, I've seen all of us do that.
Right.
The difference is. Go ahead, Kareem.
But the last thing I would say to that, though, in terms of what we need to do to help change that narrative, is even as ourselves, we got to stop. In my opinion, this is my thoughts. We got to stop saying stuff like, "This is us acting white," or "This is us acting Black," or we see a kid walking down the street who's a white kid and he's not presenting himself well, and he has his pants to the ground and talking just straight slang, and we're saying as a culture that he's trying to be Black. No, that's not being Black. That's him just acting a fool in that moment. That's just what it is. That's not Black. That's just acting a fool. And so,
and defining even to define the idea of what is acting Black, because and I'm sorry to jump in here a little bit from a host perspective, but when I was growing up, Black was New York, Black was Brooklyn.
Yeah,
that's all we got on television. Now, if you know from a hip hop perspective, Black is down south, Black is the Midwest. Black is St. Louis. Black is California. Black is Buffalo. Shout outs to Benny the Butcher. Black, and then even there's smaller pockets. Black is Toronto. Black is
Toronto right now for sure.
Black is Guyanese. Black is Trinidadian. Black is Nigerian. Black is Congolese. And even in all those pockets are small. And so for someone to say you need to act Black, it's because in their mind they have an idea of what Black is. And Black isn't an action. Black is a person. Black is who you are. It's not what you do. So that needs to be a corrective statement out there. So when you're saying that person's acting Black, you don't know what you're talking about.
100%.
You don't know what you're talking about. Nobody can act Black. I can act like Kareem. I can watch video of Kareem and imitate him. Somebody can act like me, but that's not being Black. That's being like a person. So get that narrative out of your mouth. Calvin.
Yeah. So a little bit of my background. Father's Jamaican. My mother's half South African. And so you got some interesting dynamics when it comes to being biracial and the different philosophies. Like my great-grandparents and my grandparents left South Africa when apartheid was still going on. My man Mandela, right? Freedom. And then my dad, who came up from Jamaica, a very hardworking family, and people always assumed that I had to be in what we're saying is black as Black American, right? Where my black was very different. When I would try and speak patois out of turn, and it wasn't very great, my dad would always remind us, like, hey, you're Jamaican, but there are professionals from the island. There are doctors, there are lawyers. The family that you come from are not Rastafarians, right? We don't look like that. We don't talk like that. That's cool. We celebrate who they are as looked down upon as they were, but we don't take our cues from that segment of that society, right? You were in Toronto. We came here for a better life. You have the opportunity to represent yourself the way that you represent yourself. And then on the other side of the family, dealing with, well, you're black, but you're not black, but you're too black, right? Because of the whole, like, we would consider ourselves colored. And so when I was growing up with my friends who were taking a lot of their cues from the music that I wasn't listening to, in terms of hip hop back in those days, I wasn't black enough, right? I looked at my skin tone, and the truth is, into my adult years, until I worked out a lot of different things, as cool as it was to be the kid with the different hair, right, and the different features and some of the pride that I had with that, it was very confusing because I didn't have to code switch just for white people. I had to code switch amongst my peers who were black. We had a different life experience. We had different expectations of them and on them. And I always kind of lived in this very gray space where I despised my skin tone. I despised my heritage. I felt, why am I only part white? Why aren't I full white? And it's interesting because I've been able to empathize a lot more as, you know, even you guys in the chat are experiencing biracial families and navigating hair and navigating conversations. And, you know, as men having to deal with going to a family and being engrafted in part of a family who will look at you and have expectations, and you're not sure how you have to handle it, let alone how you're going to inform your kids to navigate home life. And so I think it's pretty interesting. Again, I think the idea of blackness, as Jay said, I think it's crazy, it's ludicrous, but even within our own communities, we code switch because like what everyone calls Toronto man talk, that's just patois for me. That's just the way that I speak with my siblings, the way that I speak with my cousins. And I don't speak like that when I'm on stage. I learned better than that. But then as, you know, a minister in trying to navigate the narrative of how we're viewed as black people. I remember, I won't say names, but I was asked how I was going to grow the black community in a very white space. And I said, Jonesy, you'll hate me for this, but I said on my first day in staff meeting, I don't know, maybe we'll have fried chicken and watermelon on Thursday. And everyone was like, very like, whoa. I'm like, yo, if we're going to go there, let's go there. Or being in another context. Yeah, right? Like,
that's going there.
Or being in another context
would go
where,
there. Calvin would go
yeah.
Bring out the red Kool-Aid too.
But
did
then
you
being
do
in
the
another
Kawhi laugh?
context, he did. The context I was in, where there was a lot of urban expression and a lot of national representation. I would say close to 90 people from different nations represented. And the thing was, why wasn't I speaking like TD Jakes? Why was I taking a more eloquent approach? Or why did I try and sound a little bit more red than some of the people that they had experienced that had black skin? And I just always feel like I don't fit in, but there's this place of, okay, I may not be black enough, but I'm too black on that side as well. So I will always speak in this middle lane of, you know, being a little bit more beige than others.
Shay.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna jump in a little bit, like what Calvin said, like being of that mixed descent where my mom is white and my dad is black. It was a huge thing growing up where like I went through a whole bunch of different phases of really not understanding exactly who I was. And I had to deal with a lot of environmental stuff. Like I grew up with my mom for like certain years, then moved to my dad's and would see my mom, would see some of the family from my mom's side. And that whole aspect of code switching and understanding who we are, who I was, because I would be at parties with my mom and like no cap, like my grandma would look at myself and my siblings and be like, why do they act like this? Like just flat out, just as blunt as racism could be. And hearing your own grandma kind of say that is like, what the heck? Like you're supposed to be my family. So now I had to turn down part of who I was to appease the other half of me. And then I would go over to my dad's house and go to some barbecues, go to some black parties. And it was weird because now I was that white kid and I could feel the eyes just glaring at me. Even like the simplicity of going into a Jamaican food store with my father. The eyes would come because it's like, what is this white kid doing here? And just that duality of races played a huge part in having to now, all right, cool, I'm with my mom, I have to act quote unquote white. And I hate to label it like that because it's not, you're not acting a color that makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely no sense. And then when I'm with my dad's side, I have to act quote unquote black. And then I also am in that type of interracial marriage where my wife is Filipino. So now you add that whole aspect to the mix later on in my life where like they looked at me as a black person and it was this huge thing in her family of, oh my gosh, our cousin, our daughter is dating this black guy and he has black parents. And now it's trying to be like, okay, I can't do certain things that I would do with my dad and my family at her house because now their perception of me is of a black person and I don't want that perception to be negative. So now I have to act a certain way to appease that crowd. And then it was just a mix of trying to always have to find out how I have to act in that situation. And it's kind of, it's annoying if we're being honest, like even with other people of like, I've been stopped by police officers where as much as I joke about it and be like, yeah, like I act black in the daytime and white at night to protect myself. Like as much as I joke about stuff like that, like that's a reality.
Yeah, no, it's facts. No cap.
That I have to face. Like I've been pulled over in the car as a passenger with my wife driving and the police said nothing to my wife and just came over to my side and just interrogated me because he thought I had drugs and guns in the car when I was holding a Bible on my lap coming from youth. And it's just that awkwardness of having to always switch it on, switch it off, find out what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And it's just, it's ultimately a mess.
And the weird thing is, and then right after that, we got another one of us jumping in, is that can happen to you whether your pants are at your below your waist or whether you're wearing a suit. That can happen to whether you are the passenger or you're the driver. It can happen whether you're wilding out or whether you are standing, being calm, doing nothing. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't matter. And I don't know if people really fully understand just what you talked about, the duality of having all these things. And Jason mentioned that earlier too, of being fully aware of who you are in every given moment, in every sort of environment. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's actually, I'll even use, it's exhausting to have to constantly be thinking about all those things. Jones, you got next.
Yeah, I'm going to maybe disagree a little bit on what people say, not in the experience, but more so is when I listen to everybody, I think it comes more down to, once again, how you were raised. And so for like my family, those who know my parents, they know my parents are the same with everybody. They don't change. They are who they are. They don't do no code switching. There is no foolishness. You get what you see. And so that's what we've learned. You get what you see. If you don't like it, good. If you like it, great. And so the code switching was never really a thing for us. What was more of a thing for us was showing others what it was to be a respectable black person. So I'm not going to code switch for you, but I'm also going to show you need to respect me. You need to respect who I am. You need to respect what I do. You need to respect because I'm respecting you. And so if you don't do that, that's your own problem. You got some racist issues in your own self if you don't do that. But I ain't going to change. Do I change my language sometimes? Yeah, if I'm with my family, the Guyanese comes out, and people start talking fast. But that doesn't mean we change who we are. It just means you are either going to accept us or you're going to reject us. One of the two. And you have to choose. But for me, my parents are like, I grew up in a full Greek neighborhood. There was 2 black people in our class. However, I loved being black. I loved being different because my parents taught me you love who you are. You love being who you are. If you're black, you're black. And we don't shy away from our culture. We let people know this is something to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
This is something to take and say, hey, you know, I celebrate you. I celebrate who you are. And once again, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I think when we start to go to the code switching, then I think we're trying to appease other people instead of just being happy with who God has called us to be.
It's a good word. That's a good word. Hosky.
I think that's incredibly optimistic in terms of that viewpoint. And I think that, you know, I have, like, my wife is the realest of the real. She doesn't change for nobody. You know what I mean? And sometimes you're in situations and
you know, I've seen it. I've actually seen it, so I can attest to that.
But,
the realist, Michelle.
But once
Michelle
again, you
Hoskins.
take what you take, right?
yeah, exactly. But sometimes I'm like, honey, that's Pastor Bob. You know what I
mean? on numerous occasions, I'm seeing Adam where he doesn't even say anything. It's all with his eyes, like.
I was like.
But once again, you
stop
take
talking.
it, or you leave it. You take it or leave it.
That's Michelle Hoskins. I love her to death.
But I think there's a big thing that, you know, I think Bart actually hit on some gold that we really have to balance. And it's this idea of time. And we have time in the past. We have time in the future. And I'll start with the time in the future in terms of what Bart was saying, that success does have a language. And you may see people who do not code switch, who just, you know, just be themselves and whatnot. And you get them and you take them. However, behind closed doors, they get passed on opportunities. They get passed on a lot of things because, well, they just don't fit the bill for this thing or XYZ. You know what I mean? In terms of, and I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that that's the reality in which we live. So that's the tension that we have to manage, is that, like, we have the people who are the realest of the real, but who also get passed up on a lot of opportunities for, I don't know, advancement, not only of themselves, but also their family, their culture, and all those kinds of things in the future. And so I, for one, I'm on your side, Andrew, in terms of, like, I prefer, you know what I mean? Like I would prefer for us to advance as a society and not code switch and just, like, this is actually, like, this is all okay as we are. Take it as you get it. But the thing is that, you know, when we look at time going backwards, right? Like, we're looking at a snapshot of our lifetime. We're looking at what, like, the last 100, 200, 300 years. And when you start to think about this idea of what it means to be black, what it means to be white, what it means to be of a certain type of culture and whatnot, we have to take into consideration, like, the prevailing powers that be, the dominant cultures. You look at British colonization. You look at Greco-Roman culture. You look at, you know, ancient, Judeo-Christian, Judeo-Christian culture even before then. And all of these things play roles into, like, what it means not just to be black, but what it means to be of any type of race. And I think that there's this idea that, like, we're all, like, this idea of code switching is, like, we're all trying to push for this normality. Right, we're all trying to push for what this prevalent thing is. You have people right now that are furiously learning Cantonese and Mandarin because the global power is shifting. You know what I mean, to Asia.
No, it's not staying right here. It's gonna be here forever.
Economy is great. It's great.
Don't even do it. Don't even entertain.
Stop. Keep going.
Keep it moving.
You've got these people that are shifting. So that, like, you know what I mean? I don't think we'll be alive for it, but, like, this idea of normality and what it is to be, I guess, like, that successful ideal type is going to shift and change. I don't know if we'll be around to actually see that, but we're also looking through the snapshot. I can remember, you know what I mean? I can remember where I didn't understand when people would say, "Oh, Adam, you're an Oreo," because I was articulate, because I knew how to swim and I can skate. You know, I don't know why those things are considered by our people to be pitfalls, to be, you know what I mean, to be like not good things apparently. And then I needed to be blacker, so that meant that like, oh, I had to empathize with people like, oh, you can't skate, oh, haha, me too, but I really can. Like I didn't understand these aspects, but I think that it's a matter that we have a culture and we have a people who are pushing for this kind of normality, and then this tension with our, you know, with Black people that are pulling against it as well, trying to find identity, and it's such a struggle. It's such a struggle. Chris, you said it best in terms of like, we don't know what it means to be Black, because to be Black is a myriad of things. It's a crazy mosaic of a number of different continents, a number of different effects, historical events. All these things have played into this whole idea of a Black experience.